Mr. Jones with us?
That's two planning boards in a row. Is that three in a row we haven't had to have?
I'm sorry?
The planning board meeting? Is that three in a row we haven't had cases?
We don't have any cases.
Now, you remember what I said about the, when we was doing our budget? You remember what I said?
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah? And budget, don't wanna budget these big numbers and stuff, and, you know,
We did 30.
yeah. I'm just saying. They don't always go up. You can't always go up. Unless you're Mr. Jones's bank account,
Yeah.
and that's always going up.
You're in sad shape.
I just wanna know when you're gonna start paying your fair share.
It is 5:15, August the 16th, 2022. This is a water workshop. We are called to order. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Foy.
All right. Well, we called these, as good as time as a present to go ahead and get started having these discussions for our water system capital improvements. We did get the $3.1 million grant from the county via the federal government. Then we have a $1.1 million grant directly from the state government. Is the primary sources of funds for our capital improvement projects. So we're going to have these workshops every other week until the end of the year, or as needed, but they are on the schedule, and there's really no agenda item. I think, of course, good discussion will lead to good outcomes. So, with that, I'll share with you that I've had a couple conversations.
Could I interrupt you a second?
Go for it, man.
The meeting started without Mr. Rigsby. Is he accounted?
I'm sorry,
He's
Councilman
he-
Rigsby is absent this evening.
Correct.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
pardon me.
Yep. So I've had a couple conversations with Gary Massachusetts, our operator. What's ORC stand for, Tim?
Operator responsible in charge.
Okay.
It's a title used by the Department of Environmental Quality in the state of North Carolina.
Okay. Just making sure you're awake over there.
You asking me if I know, or you don't know when you're asking me?
I just wanted a sound mind like yourself to bounce something off of. But I've been talking with Gary. He is a part-time employee of the town as well, about the possibility for a stirrer or agitator in our elevated tank. And he absolutely believes that the town needs one to keep that water circulated in our elevated tank. While he acknowledges we are a growing community, he said that tank turnover is just, not at a good level to really be. It'd be better if we stirred or agitated that water. So I've asked Mr. Massachusetts to look into potential vendors. I have no idea how much something like that would cost. Off the top of my head, a swag would be a couple $100,000, give or take. I don't know. It's probably more take than give on that, but it's I think it's a needed capital investment for the town, and I'll just leave it at that. I think we can get some quotes here in the next month or two and proceed with that if council believes that there is value in that. I've asked Gary to come to the August 30th meeting and really share with y'all, all of us, what he shared with me today about the importance of having that. And then, of course, water line extension, take it from there. It's really a wide open discussion from there. So Mike, if that's a good enough intro for you, that's all I have right now, I believe.
Well, this is something that it's just going to take some continuing conversation. Do other council members have comments?
The stir has been talked about before. I believe Councilman Jones brought that up before. Did y'all ever get to you got shot down on it when you did. Did you ever get to where there was any pricing? I am correct, you had brought that up before, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about several years ago, not.
If you're asking me about any history I'm aware of, then if you'll give me a minute, I think I can go there. Previous councils have met many times with DEQ officials, the town's ORC, the engineers. It's a sort of a constant thing tending to our water system. And during the course of that time, it has come up fairly frequently that we don't get much exchange in our elevated water tank. Personally, I believe that we need a stir or a pneumatic agitation system, one or the other. And I think if our tank was built today, it'd be a good chance that would be required or included, and it would probably be piped in such a way that water was forced to circulate through it. So far as the cost goes of the stirrer, I know we've had experts in the building speaking about that, and I don't remember any numbers, but it's not cheap. But it reminds me of a giant milkshake mixer that goes in the tank. The pneumatic systems, I had a meeting once with the technical folks in Madison, and if I recall correctly, it's about $200,000 per elevated tank to install an aeration system. The good news is that as it was reported to me, that dropped our TTHM levels down to the point where a lab could hardly detect them. So it supposedly does work, is very effective, and it's not really a question of what we want so much as this is the standard that we have to meet, set by the federal government and enforced by the state. It's not much of an opportunity for debate here. We have to address this. Unfortunately, in the town of Stokesdale Water System Master Plan prepared by Hazen and Sawyer for $84,400, that subject is not addressed.
After speaking with Gary, I'm surprised it was not addressed. I don't know what to say. When we did that study, I was, a month or two into this seat, and quite frankly, with as little as I know now about a water system, I even knew that much less then. I don't think, so I just probably didn't ask the right questions.
Well, certainly I look forward to Gary coming and speaking to council. Probably the only question I would ask him, do we need a stir or do we need a pneumatic system? And maybe he could speak to that. Maybe the stir is cheaper, but insofar as what the difference is, as I understand it, if the water just simply needs to be agitated to prevent the stratification and to something in that process disperses the TTHMs that we don't want in our water that are a byproduct of treating surface water with chlorine. The more chlorine you put in the water, the more you have a tendency to create these four byproducts commonly referred to as TTHMs. And, what I know that I've picked up is very little in proportion to, a professional like Gary. But I think it's something that should be a high priority on this council's list. And I think there's ample evidence that we're just barely meeting the standard as we go along. We've had some high TTHM levels in the past. The state, as I understand it, allows us to average those out. So it's kind of like we're barely getting over the hurdles as we go along.
Right. Okay.
I mean, that sounds like something we just need to proceed with. If we've been having issues, I mean, that,
Yeah, I don't know if we've had issues. The numbers, averaged out.
Keep it down.
Yeah.
So we don't have issues.
That's the thing. We want to prevent anything.
Well, this is the scenario that was going on in Flint, Michigan years ago that had so much press, and bad press, I might add. And so it's just not something that we need to be ignoring, whatever the cost may be.
Well, Gary did say he'd have a couple vendors, contact a few vendors and share that information with us this week. So I'm with Jimmy. I mean, if we can get talk to 3 vendors, get 3 prices, and, you know, select which candidate we think is the best. Not, I mean, of course, price being one metric, but, you know, there's other things that we should consider too. Price being the largest metric, but,
The pneumatic stirrer, is that newer technology? Or is that just different?
I think it's 2 different techniques as far as I go, but I think this is a better question to direct at Gary or perhaps our Rural Water Association representative and/or engineer.
Tim, I'm gonna ask a question, and I really don't expect you to know the answer, just something that I've kind of observed from a water system that, you know, there's no electricity really involved, or minimal electricity in a water system. It's all rather mechanical. So to Jimmy's point about, you know, new technologies and all that, I wonder, you know, how much new technology is out there if we're just kind of, you know, once you have what you have in place, the foundation laid, you know, it's kind of set up to hopefully run itself.
Well, since our system is totally mechanical now, there's nothing, the power can be off and it doesn't
Sure.
really affect it, except we do have a chlorine boost station, but as far as it regulating itself, that's all done mechanically. But this study recommends a control valve on our pressure reducing valve, and I'm inclined to believe that we need that. This mechanism would communicate with the elevated tank to help the operator maintain proper cycle and the proper levels. And as I understand it, we can buy some sort of panel along with it that would be installed in the town hall here that would be able to monitor it remotely. I don't know if that's could further be extended to anything that you could set up an alarm if certain parameters were exceeded, et cetera, et cetera. Don't know much about it, but I just know it has come up in the past.
Who puts these in? Is it, I mean, would it be the same people that would do a pneumatic circulator, or would that be different?
Well, Underwood out of Sanford might possibly be those folks. They do that type of work. Beyond that, I do not know. It's certainly a specialty item.
So is that number 2? Where does that?
What did you say that was? A regulator on a pressure reducer valve?
Control valve.
Control?
It would be a control valve that would be installed on the pressure reducing valve, and I guess the pilot valve would come off. This would require the installation of electrical controls and antennas, and my one reservation about it is it just like everything else, our TVs, our computers, I wonder how we would be impacted by electrical storms and, you know, that sort of thing. And of course, the more technology we install, the more technology there is to break down.
Sure.
Well, these would be things that wouldn't actually stop our water system. I mean, if they broke, we'd get a chance to get them fixed. It wouldn't shut would it? I mean, bypass.
No, I mean, there's not one of those things that's on this minute and off the next. It would just be a maintenance item.
So would you say that would be the second? I know we talked a lot about a secondary source, and we've actually, looked at a secondary inlet, really, and secondary source. And a lot of folks have, had interest in that. I wouldn't say a lot, some. Do these items, you think, trump that as far as getting these done? Because, I mean, we should shore up what we have before we start worried about expanding, I believe, in my opinion.
Well, we need to be sure with what we're already operating is working properly, well maintained, upgraded, and improved as necessary, and we're taking care of our current customers before we start worrying about taking in
Well, that's pretty much what
other
I said.
areas and what have you. Yeah. As far as the list of possible capital improvements, I think it goes on and on. I think between us, we could come up with quite a laundry list, and probably need to do that, and then look at trying to put them in some possible order.
Let's do just that. We've got $4 million, am I correct?
4.2.
And we need to encumber it, a lot of it, before next June.
1.1.
That needs to be encumbered, but the other,
It's not gonna be hard to spend the money,
oh, I don't doubt that.
but you know, we need to spend it smart. You know, we could,
So where do we go with our existing water system? What direction?
Well,
Are we going for a second source?
yeah, I mean, it depends how you define that. I mean, but ultimately, yeah, it can either be a secondary inlet into town, which at a minimum would come off the main trunk line up 158. It could be a true secondary source by the definition of the secondary source, and that means Rockingham County. I mean, for me, that would have to mean tying into the free chlorine side of Rockingham County, unless some engineers can really tell me that we can safely do it different. Or Hall River Road has been discussed. All these have pluses and minuses, so I jotted down some things. So, you could loop 65 or Coldwater, which comes off the 158 trunk line to 65 up to Oak Level. And, there's your loop right there. It's roughly 2.5, 3 miles. The pluses to that is you are covering your land pipe 100% in the town of Stokesdale and covering 100% of the town of Stokesdale citizens along that line, if they so wanted to connect. Another downside to that is the water source per se is still one trunk line coming up 158 from Walkertown. So, from there, you have potential capacity issues. I think the diameter of that pipe, once you cross the lake in Forsyth County, is greater, like 12 inches. So, they have a greater capacity in Forsyth County than we do here in Guilford County, because we're only at 8 inches. Another option, going all the way down 65 from Oak Level all the way down to the power plant. That's roughly 4.5 miles. Up there where JP lives.
yeah, you're still covering all that area on 65.
Absolutely. You're covering 2.5 miles of Stokesdale there.
The benefit of that might be that might be a plus for Winston-Salem, because that may help them with their aged water.
Absolutely.
We might be able to do some kind of partnership or something. I mean, I don't know.
I think at some point in time, call it the next 3-4 months, it'd be a good idea for Tim and the mayor to visit Winston and meet with, her name passes by, but who's over the utility system? Courtney Driver. And bring young Robbie with you, so he can take notes or whatever. To establish that relationship, or I guess she already has a relationship with the town, but in terms of capital projects, potential capital projects, especially if we go that route. Another option, tying into the Madison side of Rockingham County, which again is free chlorine, is shooting up 68 by Marshall Woods, and then coming over on 65, which in terms of linear miles might be the least linear miles. That's a good option as long as it's free chlorine. It's not cut and dry though. The capacity at Rockingham County, I think right now is kind of an unknown, being how quickly that area is growing. So, additional conversations would need to be had. An option could be coming right up Southern Road to 65. That might be the least of all the linear miles, and tying into Rockingham County there. Another option is going down 158 and connecting into the Reedsville system, which, you know, I don't like at face value because it's chloramine. But again, if there's an engineer and other people that are smart, that can say,
Generally speaking, that blows our budget.
I'm gonna tell you,
how many miles is
the
that?
60,
So it's about 3.5 is all the equipment that comes with that. That is beyond our grasp.
My understanding is if we switch to the reusable as a source,
the
we'd
one
also.
I like the best, and I have since we was talking about this when the other guys were here,
Yeah.
I like the one on 65. I mean, the water is all the way just about to Stokesdale now. And,
Hold on, bear with me. 60, are you talking about going by JP's? Or,
No. I'm talking about, Rockingham County 65. That's a short distance.
up 68 or
That's a
Southern?
that's a short distance. That is a true secondary source. These other places are not, you know, everybody, you know, I brought this up a lot of time. These are not secondary sources. If you have a problem, if something strange happens in Winston-Salem, we know we've already had something in the news where people, I forget where it's at, but they had to boil their water.
Right.
If something happened to Winston's system where people had to boil their water, it wouldn't matter. All those lines we talk about, you would still be in that, have that issue. You may have a chance unless it was something statewide if you did 65. Plus, I don't think the outlay would be as much, and we'd have money to do some of these other things we need to do to shore our system up. So I think, I personally, unless somebody changes my mind, I think that's the best route, the best thing to try to do. Now, I think we need to look at everything. And,
Absolutely.
you know, we got time to do it and make sure, you know, what everybody wants to do. Of course, we're gonna do that, but I just think that makes a sense, just on the surface. Now, I could be,
Well, I
could be
think,
off base.
I think you're, for the most part, you're spot on. I would add an add-on to it if the money was there, you know, to potentially still do that loop from Coldwater to 65 to Oak Level, a 2.5, 3 miles, plus that 1 mile, if possible. I mean, to serve, you know, if everything worked out. I mean, Rockingham County, you know, from my perspective, we may need, well, I think we'll definitely would need additional meetings with them. We might need, you know, other representatives that represent both Rockingham County and Stokesdale to maybe facilitate such a meeting. You know, we're flying an elephant's rear end to them, so I don't know how eager they are to supply us. But, you know, it could work the other way around. In an event where they might need water, we could supply them with our free chlorine water through Winston.
And another thing, it'll help them with their flushing. I mean, that's at the end, you know.
Yeah,
That could
absolutely.
possibly help them, and we could sign up and buy a certain amount of water.
Well, I could-
Because we're guaranteed 300,000 with Winston. We're not guaranteed any more. We've been told we could get more, but it's never happened. So,
Well, I think that would be a big agenda item for
Well,
a meeting for 2 council members and Courtney Driver.
if they won't sell us more water from the line we already connected, what makes us think they'll sell us water if we run a line all the way up Hall River Road to Kernersville?
that's another thing, you know, we can run all these lines. It's not gonna do us a whole lot of good if we can't get no water out of it.
I'm just laying out the options there. I mean, you know, we just kind of need to write down step by step what needs to happen. I mean, I tend to agree with Jimmy as ensuring up a true secondary source and going the 1.5 miles or so, you know, tying into Rockingham County to their free chlorine water system. I wish it was as easy as doing just what I said, but, you know, there's complexities there with, you know, I mean, again, we're a small customer to those guys.
I'll tell you what we need some boards up here. We need to put down our options on the expansion. What our options are. I'm talking about the secondary source or secondary inlet, whatever. Do a Ben Franklin close on them. Anybody in the town that wants to get involved and, you know, say, this is why we think we should go this way or whatever, and come into these open meetings where we can put them down. And, maybe somebody knows something we don't know. Maybe there's a reason. I mean, money's gonna be one reason. We can only do so much.
That's right.
Maybe there's some funding somewhere else if there's something that just put the good points and the bad points on each one of these things. And use that to make our decision. Because if we don't do something, we're gonna be jumbled up in our heads.
Well, we're going to lean heavily on our engineers, but, all credit to Tim here. Tim's got a lot of good ideas. He had a suggestion of maybe having some kind of consultant, whether it be a retired utilities manager, something on those lines that can assist us during this process and offer us good sound advice.
Got a lead on one today I'm gonna be following up on, as a
Okay.
matter of fact. Came from rural water, so just got it hot off the presses, so I'll see where that goes.
Excellent.
That's good.
But I think and I think all of us do, but recognizing we're, layman and very far from being experts, and knowing that we're gonna need to rely on other people, as we make these decisions.
Okay, we're in session, we're meeting, what are we trying to accomplish before we adjourn this meeting? Are we trying to make a list of possible capital improvements, or do we have speakers from the floor that won't have information to bring to us? Are we?
Yeah, I've made a list. I think a takeaway from this meeting would be, each council member, make their own list and submit it to Ms. Martin or Robbie and have them redistribute it all. But we can talk about ideas here. We've already talked about several. I'd be remiss to not give Bert and T a chance to speak up too.
Okay, well, to give us something to talk about, I drove in my vehicle from Coldwater 158 to First Christian Church using Coldwater and NC 65.
Mm-hmm.
According to my odometer, that's 3.6 miles. Might not have to quite go that far because we're already got a water main down Coldwater going to a development in Forsyth County, but I don't know what size it is, so that's why I started from Coldwater in 158. And just so I had a number in my mind, it's 2.7 miles from Coldwater and 158 up to the stoplight at 65 and 158, where First Christian Church is at. That's really kind of where our choke point is so far as that 8-inch line coming from our metering station into town that perhaps now we wish was a 12-inch line.
Tim, is there an 8-inch line that goes to Oak Level up 65?
I don't think so.
Well,
I think that's
isn't
a
that how
6.
all the folks in South Point and Deer Path, isn't that how they get their water?
Yeah, but I'm not sure it's an 8-inch line. It may be a 6. Forgive me, I can't remember.
Okay.
But it's not very far from Oak Level to 65.
Right.
That's 8-inch down Oak Level.
It's 8-inch down to Oak Level?
It's 8-inch down to Oak Level, then down Oak Level, and then it cuts back in that development. There's a 2-inch in that middle section, and then it's a 6-inch that goes up and around.
Right.
So,
Okay, well, that's even better then. That would take some off of that footage.
But to your point, maybe 0.2 or 0.3, I mean, not many mileage, but
Well,
every little bit.
yeah.
It's easily 3 miles.
What is the cost per mile to lay the pipe?
Well,
16-inch years ago was $85 a foot. We used to think of 6 inches being 50, as I recall. And the way inflation has hit everything, as a matter of fact, that industry, there's certain jobs that pipe has been back ordered for months, and in some cases
30 months.
Yeah, I mean, there are supply issues.
But what is it to actually lay the pipe?
To actually lay the pipe, Mike, you're probably looking at 90 to 100 a foot. And
Okay.
I have spoke with the utility contractor about that, who shared some of the same supply chain concerns that Tim was referring to. I was I reached out to an engineer and said, you know, what's the average engineering, you know, that would go into a linear foot of water line? And of course, the answer was it depends, but I think from a budgetary standpoint, we might be looking at $30 to $40 a foot. It just depends.
Certainly not for engineering. Tell me I didn't hear that.
Well, I mean, I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, I hope you are too. Well, anyway, it's not cheap.
I mean, you used to lay pipe for that.
I think we can expect to pay $100 a foot.
A number thrown around, I think, in some of Summerfield's studies, doing their engineers, is basically $1 million a mile. That seems high to me, but I know.
Well, this seems like a lot of money, and it is to us as individuals, but for the type of work that we're contemplating doing, it may turn out not to be quite so much.
Right.
Well, I think in this meeting, we've come out that I think we're probably in agreement that we need to shore up what we have with this money, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, the stir,
No sense in adding on to, you know, no sense putting a nice stereo in a car that's got bad brakes. Or brakes are getting ready to wear out.
yeah,
So
that's a
Well,
Jimmy, isn't it?
The,
Add it to the wall.
fix that first, you mean, get that, you know,
the good news is our elevated tank has just been repainted. We've just rebuilt the altitude valve recently, that we've just rebuilt the pressure reducing valve recently. So we have those recurring expenses behind us for the moment. The thing that's never too far from my mind is we got a grant to put our water system in the first place because of the underground contamination in the Stokesdale. And it seems like we have very quickly forgot about that, and I don't know, I have no way of quantifying the problem, but I still remain concerned that we're not monitoring that we don't have any updated information. We don't know if that contamination is spreading. We don't know how that may affect anybody that's in one of those areas, especially with children or elderly people, and that remains a concern of mine. I made a motion once to have staff procure all the available updated information from the state and the county, and we just hadn't got started yet. That was about 5 years ago. And I don't know exactly the fastest way to get us there, but I wonder if we shouldn't be making some effort to offer those people in those areas some sort of deal to hook up, if they're not hooked up already, a discount on their connection, finance a connection for them. I don't know what would be prudent to do.
who are these people?
I don't know of any other way except to look within the contaminated zone on the map right there and identify the addresses and have Priscilla cross-reference the addresses that are on the system versus addresses that are not on the system.
I mean, that's a serious question. I mean, who are they? I mean, if we got anybody that's, I mean, how are we gonna find out who they are? I mean, when we did the system, they pretty much ran it to where the contamination areas were at.
Have there been any core samples taken since then?
I mean, they took core samples all over the place.
But have there been any taken since then?
Well, I'll restate what I said. And that map on the back wall right there is as old as our water system. To my knowledge, there's never been any updated information that has been available or that has come to this building from the state or Guilford County Health Department about those contaminated areas, any updated information about monitoring. The good news is, we haven't received any complaints or warnings from citizens or other governmental entities. And I think it's something to be cautious about, and on the other hand, I certainly wouldn't want to panic anybody out there that might live near one of those spots. But it just seems like that we would be incumbent upon us to remember that and ask ourselves if we're doing what's prudent.
I mean, I remember it well. I'm just saying, what, we can remember it, but what are you talking about? I mean, what's the action? What's the action to take?
Was there any remediation put into place at the time this was discovered?
No, I think they put in some monitoring wells. I'm not sure where they may be, what the details may be. But again, the only action that's ever been taken, far as I know, was my motion we'd have to dig through the minutes, and that motion was to have the staff contact the state of North Carolina, the appropriate departments, and Guilford County Health Department, and ask them for any information that we don't have. And we don't have much in the building beyond that map that I know of. But what I do know is that in those contaminated areas, there are people still using their well that are not on our water system. And if they want to do that with the knowledge that they're in a contaminated area, that they're aware of this, I would consider our job done if they're knowingly doing it. But if I wouldn't want it to sneak up on a family that had just moved in, 2 or 3 years ago and not be aware of this. And I think they could easily be down here in front of us asking, well, why didn't you tell us? Or why wasn't this information on the town's website, et cetera, et cetera. And so I don't have the answers, but that's simply the action that I took, was making that motion. And it was, that's as far as it went. Council voted for it, and that's as far as it went.
All right, that was 5 years ago, or 6 years ago, or however long. So what do you want to do now? You want to make that motion again? I mean, maybe this time we can make it happen. That's what, I'm just trying to figure out what action we're gonna take.
I think one of the things we need to
On
do,
council 5 years ago, so there wasn't nothing I could do about it.
Well,
I'm willing to now vote to do something about it if there's something we can do, because I don't want anybody drinking dirty water.
the way I look at it with those sorts of things, the motion is still valid. It's passed. It just hadn't, no action's been taken on it.
Unless you wanna go back and find all the records or tie the town, the clerks up trying to find it, I mean, remake your motion and we'll vote on it to do it again, and this time maybe we can get it done,
I could.
if you wanna do it.
I'm calling this to council's attention because I have that concern. I have the question, I don't have the answer.
Well, I'm just saying, if we're gonna talk about it, let's do something about it. And you could remake your motion and we could put, we can't do anything about past people. We can do something with what we got now. That's all we can do. If you wanna do something, I'm up to vote for it. And if not, then we're going down the road.
Well, my point is, during this process, we have money coming to the town that I think could be used for that purpose, before we worry about taking in other tributary areas in the town with that money. Do we need to spend some of it to address those issues? And so I don't have the answer for that.
If we got a problem, then we need to fix it. That's part of our water system now.
Well, yeah, I thought the fix for the problem was the water system. But, I hear Tim's point. If there are customers in those areas that are still on well water, one, did they do that at their choice? Or, two,
Well, if
do they even know?
If the line's running by your house and you didn't get on it, it was your choice. Now, he's right.
I'm thinking,
he's right about
what options do they have with the DEQ? I mean, there's a big old fund for that. I believe the property up here on the corner of, where priority, well, anyway, on the corner of, up here, let's just say that.
Well,
They use DEQ money to tie on to the water system.
just for example, let's just say a study was done a couple of years ago and DEQ has it, or whomever. If we could get our hands on it, I might be willing to vote to notify every property owner within those areas that there was updated information, notify them about the history, put it on the town's website, put it on the Facebook page, put a notice on the wall here, make a reasonable effort to make people aware of that. And I think, that might suffice to satisfy my concern about it. I'm not necessarily saying we're going, the five of us are going to split up and go knock on people's doors, but what is the prudent thing to do? That's the question.
I think if there's an issue that we need to do something. I mean, why don't you remake your motion? And we'll have staff look into the issues that you wanted to do before and see where it goes.
Who do you contact here? Is it the DEQ or the health department? In an event like you have questions, were further studies done?
I don't deal with underground contamination. My gut is that that's more of a state function than it would be a county function, that the county would pass those things up to state, but honestly, I don't think I can speak to that intelligently.
I would think that if you just wanted to get started, you can start with the health department, and then go to the state. I mean, if you don't want to make a motion, I'll make one. I'll make a motion that we get Robbie, our deputy town clerk, to I don't know how to put it. Start. Huh?
Microphone.
We are going to be able to vote. We're not spending any money doing this, right?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
I'll make a motion for Robbie to start researching this and see if we can find out anything about any contamination in Stokesdale.
Let's give him a list of.
Okay,
I'll. I'm sorry.
And you want to add on to that? I mean, it was you.
I think we just need to give him a list of where to go.
I wanted to second his motion. And
I'm sorry.
that's forgive me. He needs a second.
All right, yeah, I need a second.
I'll second that motion with the amendment that we'll ask Mr. Wagner to use his best efforts to contact Guilford County, particularly the Guilford County Health Department and North Carolina DEQ, their groundwater section, and wherever else that may lead him up to and just short of contacting the federal government. I'm scared that would result in the amount of, that would turn into a full-time job for him. And report back to us.
And what time, and let's say he reports back to us before the next meeting.
By the next meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
But
It'd be nice to have it maybe the day before, so we can be able to look at it ourselves. And
by the next water workshop meeting we have scheduled. That sounds good, Mr. Lander.
Let's say that the Monday before.
Can you clarify what we're to contact them with, for what? I guess, give me some,
Any information we can find about contamination.
what is
groundwater in
contaminated here.
Stokesdale, anything that may be updated. Actually, what we're sending him on's a goose chase. I hope it ain't a wild one, but,
You could use that map in the back of the room right there as a basis to initiate that conversation, but we find out if there's any updated maps, any test results that have been done.
and you're not saying there's any extra or anything anymore. We're just trying to find out if there's been anything else done. Any more discussion?
No. I'm aye.
Jimmy?
I'm an aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And I am aye.
All right. I don't know if I need to word it as a motion, but I do suggest all council members maybe put their thoughts and ideas to paper and maybe jot those in and email them out to Robbie so he can distribute those to all. That might give us a good baseline for our next meeting on the 30th.
You had also mentioned that Tim and I would contact the Winston-Salem representative.
I think that is a down the road step.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
Not too
How
far down
about-
the road,
how about-
September-ish, October.
How about Rockingham County? Can we pursue that? Should we pursue that? We've already made initial contact with them, and Tim and I both have a pretty good idea of what they don't want to do.
I think we know where we stand with them. I think you and I should have a discussion about a next step with them.
Let's go.
See if we can put our
Let's
heads
go.
together
We'll do
on
it.
that.
I'll let you buy me lunch one day.
Okay, if I can at least afford a hot dog and french fries.
Oh, Lord.
It probably wouldn't hurt, Mr. Mayor, if you did contact Courtney Driver and just said hello, the mayor.
I had her number. I got it early on. I just never had made contact with her, but I will. I'll do that. I'll make a phone call.
Just chit chat a little bit, maybe. You know.
I'll make a phone call.
I got her email address if you need it.
Okay. I know Dale has it.
Yeah.
You have a second for that motion?
Yeah, Tim, no, this is not a motion. This is not a motion, Dale. This is not a motion.
You was talking about the motion I made.
Derek started, said I'll make a
I
motion.
said I don't, I think it said I don't need to make a motion here. I was thinking about it, but I don't think I need to make a motion to ask the other guys to put their thoughts to paper. Just do it.
$100.
All right. Well, if we don't have anything, I want to give Bert and T a chance to speak. If we don't have
Gentlemen,
anything
if you have something you'd like to add, please step to the podium, give us your name.
The mic's not there.
Talk loud. Oh, here's the mic.
Anybody to speak? You want,
We just want to be sure the recorder gets it.
It's, yeah,
You can come speak up here, sit up here with Jim's seat if you want.
we're broadcasting here, man.
You guys remember, this is a workshop meeting and we're throwing stuff on the wall, so.
I just had a couple of questions, primarily with regard to the stirrer versus,
Let her get.
The pneumatic.
have to be careful, I might like this too. Okay. T. Stevenson, 7900 Caraway, Stokesdale. Just had a couple of questions with regard to the improvements to the existing system. We were talking about a stirrer for the elevated tank and versus another system. And was just wondering, would that involve emptying that tank? And if so, how would that impact the water system for the residents? Would there be downtime? That kind of thing. Just want to make sure that that's in consideration. When you put the stirrer, you know, I know relatively nothing about that.
Mr. Stevenson, our system will run without the elevated tank. That elevated tank is sort of a safety issue, particularly for firefighting water. It's kind of in a sense, it's a backup, makes helps our pressure. But our system will operate without the tank in service, and the tank would have to be taken out of service. And, they would have to get in, do the install, and then the tank will go through a disinfection process and then put back in service. Much the same way that the work was done when we had the tank painted. It shouldn't be a big deal, with those are they have the expertise to do that, and I can't think of any scenario where anybody's going to be on restricted water usage or anything, if that's what you mean with your question.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you, T.
Hey, I'm Bert Schmitz, 8202 Candy Drive. I got 4 questions. One starts with, the same issue. There was you had consultants or engineers look at the water system a while ago, and I got a copy of that, and they talked about the age of the water in the tank. And one of their solutions was to vary the levels, to let that come out or something like that. Is that the electronic valve that Tim was talking about earlier that would be needed to do that?
Yes, that would allow us to do that.
Oh, okay, so. The other question I had was, Tim was talking about TTHM or something like that. Is there water testing done in Stokesdale itself that shows that? Because I think everything the town sends me is a Winston-Salem report, correct?
No, there's testing that's done here. Gary, our ORC, performs that function for the town. It's a very controlled process. He submits it to a lab approved by the state, and it's
But that's not what you send
very
out to the
involved.
citizens of Stokesdale, right?
Excuse me?
What you send to the citizens of Stokesdale is a Winston-Salem report?
It's a water quality report, but it should have the relative information on it, but I don't know that
I don't
it
think I ever
lists
saw
all
anything
the
that was
sample size.
Stokesdale specific, though.
We generate it, is what Tim is saying. Gary generates this, sends it to a lab, and the lab gives us the report as far as I know.
Okay.
Bert, obviously something has triggered you to say that, so I want to follow up on that.
Yeah, I just remember, anytime I look at a water quality report from the town of Stokesdale, it always talks about a Winston-Salem on it,
Okay.
right? That they're the one that did the testing, or it's something,
We do have an outside lab that does all of our testing.
okay.
And Gary does test, at different points throughout the town, normally at the ends of the system.
Okay.
And submits those to the labs, and, we have all that data.
This process is controlled by DEQ. Even the bottles that he captures this water with have a barcode on them. They have to be accounted for, every one of them. And so that process is state mandated and controlled, and Gary performs that work because of his ORC certification, and it has to go to a certified lab. I think our TTHM tests are done 4 times a year, but don't go
okay,
too far
okay.
with that.
So Bert, that's called the Consumer Confidence Report.
Yeah, that
I'm
sounds
looking
like
at it, it's 2021 Annual Drinking Water Quality Report, Town of Stokesdale. And then it has the water system number and such. To your point, it does go over to some of the sources of the water, like where the water comes from. So of course you have Salem Lake, Yadkin, and Yadkin River, and those are the 2 sources into the Winston-Salem water system.
Okay.
So we don't have a reservoir or anything here. So those are definitely mentioned in that report.
Okay, but the point of the measurements in that report are here in Stokesdale, right? Okay.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
And the last question I have is, we've been talking about laying pipe and connecting to multiple sources and stuff like that for a long time, but I think it came up here too. With supply chain issues, do we have any agreements with Winston-Salem for capacity, or any of these guys for capacity of the amount of water they can deliver? Because, John would always say that, they'll sell us all we want, right?
Right. So
what do we got that's more concrete than John saying they'll sell us all we want?
So John's statement, I think, came in good faith in the sense that Winston-Salem's capacity is roughly 90 to 95 million gallons a day, and their demand on average is about 30 to 35. Things you got to take into effect is an average is just that. It's an average. On a peak use fire day for Winston-Salem, they may well be pushing 90 to 95. So I think our concern is, we've heard those comments in the past, but all we have in writing is an allocation of 300,000 gallons a day. We're using roughly, on average, about 130 to 140.
Okay.
So we, as a council, acknowledge we'd like to get something in writing that increases that number.
Okay.
It's all about motions. We actually made a motion to have
Yeah,
that done on time.
the sore
And
subject.
and that didn't get done, so we feel your pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you for your questions. Those are good
Those are
questions.
good questions.
Yeah.
I'm glad somebody else answered them.
Council have any comments?
No, sir. I appreciate appreciate Bert and T coming to listen to us. We'll be here.
Every Tuesday, every other
Every other
Tuesday.
Tuesday, so August 30th, and look at your calendar and go from there. Yeah, we got a lot of work to do, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with these guys and staff, and we're gonna need to bring some real experts in here to help us out.
Jimmy?
Yep, fellas, yeah, really do appreciate you coming and really appreciate you getting up and asking questions, because it'll keep us on our toes. And who knows, you might come up with something that we don't know. And it wouldn't be too hard to do, probably. And so thanks. And I think this is productive. Hopefully, we will get started on prioritizing, where we want to go. And get this done, so I hate to say it, but to be able to spend this money.
High dollar Jimmy over there.
I'm not enthused about the way that we got it, but we got it, and if we didn't get it, somebody else would get it. So I guess we can look at it that way. So thank everybody.
Tim?
I don't believe I have any comments beyond thanking the two gentlemen for attending the meeting.
I too would thank you both. I really do appreciate it. And Jim, to your point, Walmart doesn't care where they get their money.
Do what?
Walmart doesn't care where they get their money.
Well,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Am I?
Jim?
Aye.
Tim? And I am I. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Well, when I know my grandkids is gonna be paying for it.
No, your great grandkids are probably gonna be.
No, and actually, we're gonna get to pay.
It's happening quicker than you think.
It's already happening quicker than I thought.
All right, fellas. Y'all have a good one.